Mic'd Up Podcast, hosted by Dr. Mike Miller and Kobe Duran of Central Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Texas, is a series of conversations about issues that matter. For people who have real questions and doubts, it covers topics of faith, theology, and philosophy in ways that are easy to understand. Ultimately, Mic'd Up is a podcast with a couple of guys having conversations about conversations you are having. Mic'd Up is produced by Al Lambert Jr. at Mic'd Up Studios in Jacksonville, Texas.
Why don't we can talk about more recent events and really get ourselves in trouble.
I like that.
I like to get ourselves in trouble. Life is more fun that way.
It is. Okay, are you ready to go?
Am I ready to go?
Are you?
I don't know if I'm ready to go or not. But did you see the statistic?
Yes.
Okay, then.
What's
the statistic that every team in the Super Bowl era that has scored 40 points in even one game and had no turnovers in that game
have won?
Their home record for that year is 300-0. Every team in the NFL that has had one game of 40 points and 40 points or more and no turnovers, their record is 300-0 until Sunday. Now it's 300-0-1.
At least we weren't 301. You know what I mean? Like at least we weren't like 300 and then 1. You know, like we weren't the team that lost. That's how I'm looking at this. I'm looking at it as a glass half full, not a glass half empty. Touche. What does touche mean?
Gotcha. I don't know.
You thought that entire time. You thought a long time for that one, and that's the best.
Here, I'm going to tell you what it means. Touche with a little acute accent over it.
Interesting.
In fencing, it is used as an acknowledgement of a hit by one's opponent. Otherwise used as an acknowledgement during a discussion of a good or clever point made at one's expense by another person. I don't think I was at my expense.
Was it though?
No.
So here's some interesting facts here. I want to give you some interesting facts, Mike. I'm just looking at our last 2 episodes.
It's from the French past participle of toucher, to touch.
Huh. Well, didn't see that one coming.
There you go.
You want to talk some stats, though, with me right here, right now?
Stats.
Mic'd Up Podcast.
Oh.
Long history of being international. Do you want to know how many countries we were in on our last 2 podcasts?
How many? Because I would say probably like 75 or 80.
I like that number.
Yeah.
And I think that we can Baptist math this thing into that number. But we have reached 7 countries in our last 2 episodes.
Wow.
7.
That's impressive.
7. We've got Germany.
Texas.
Yes, Texas, America. We've got Germany. We've got Singapore. We got Peru. We've got New Zealand and Australia. Isn't that interesting?
Well. We have the Kiwis down in New Zealand.
Oh yeah, I've heard it. I've heard that's a.
I hope that's not derogatory.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It shouldn't be. If it is, it shouldn't be. I guess that's 6 countries. Did I say 7? I guess that's 6 countries.
Did you count America? That would be 7.
America, Peru, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, and then I forgot the other one. Dadgummit, now I got to go back and look.
It was an Asian something.
Was it an Asian something?
Did you say Indonesia?
Singapore.
Singapore.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And if we go back one additional episode, you are looking at France. So that is 7. So 7 countries in 3 episods.
France.
We've got a lot to get into today, and probably none of it's going to be comfortable. So
will be new for this podcast.
I've got to say, I'm a little nervous about this one today. So this is our first podcast since we have had a lot of events happen in our country that are, interesting to say the least. But certainly very hard and there's some very polarizing opinions. And so I think that it would be best if we just kind of put pause on some of the other conversations that we probably prefer to have and try to, at best, address some of these things without the polarization. But unfortunately, I feel like because it is so polarized, there's
Here's
no
the
way.
deal. With some of these things that I know what you're talking about are so polarized, there is literally nothing, and I mean nothing you could say that wouldn't offend someone.
Yeah.
Which is part of the problem. If you get offended because we're having dialogue about this, I would encourage you to check yourself.
Yeah.
It's one thing to disagree and have another opinion, but to be offended because someone's trying to think through these issues is, I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is people get offended so easily, and what gets me is they call the other side snowflakes who get offended. I mean, that's on both sides. Oh, you're a snowflake. Well,
Right.
And calling names like that is just not helpful.
Right. Yeah.
And so let's just talk about whatever you want to, and just know if you get offended easily, we're going to do that today.
Yeah. We're probably going to say some things.
And we're not going to try to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not the intent.
No.
That's not the intent. But I do think that there are times where we need to kind of speak to some of the cultural things that are going on and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
before we do that, let's give our proper intro here.
Let's
Welcome
do it.
To the Mic'd Up Podcast, where we have the conversation
About the conversations you are having. And boy, that's true.
That is relevant. So let's just start off from the top. So obviously, what was it? It was 3 weeks ago that we had the incredibly public and incredibly disturbing assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
And you and I, we've kind of talked about this because you have a guy who very clearly, I mean, at least my opinion, I've never met the man, obviously, and there's people who have professed the name of Christ that had very public ministries that we know were not good people.
Yep.
But as best as I can tell, and as best as all the testimonies can speak of at this point in time, Charlie Kirk was a Christian. He was a brother in Christ, very good person, I think.
I agree. In fact, I would say that he actually, when he shared the gospel, did it as accurately as anybody I've ever heard share the gospel. I mean, when he shared the gospel, it was the gospel.
Right.
You and I've talked about, we have some, we take exception to some of his theology.
Yeah.
But you can be a Christian and differ on theology. You can be a Christian and have theological error.
Right. I know that I have theological error. I just don't know what it is.
Well, the truth is, one of these days we're going to find out we all are in error in some place, right? Unless we think we're as infallible as Jesus.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, here's the thing that obviously we can see so clearly. And this is a time, I told you the other day, I'm not on social media. I have a Facebook account, but I don't get on it. And so I decided to break my Facebook fast for probably a grand total of about like maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, man,
it's 30 minutes you can't.
I wish I hadn't have done that, because I get on there and every single post, whether it's from somebody that I know or somebody that I don't know or some, other like big media group or whatever, it's all talking about Charlie Kirk. And it was just so obvious like that there was two ways that people are processing the assassination. You have one, you have the people who have villainized Kirk because of maybe something that he has said or believed or whatever the case may be. Then you kind of got the people that have, I'm not going to say like they have deified him. I think that is, I think there probably are some people out there, but that's not the majority of the people.
They've lionized him, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like there's almost like this kind of like sainthood status that has been granted to him.
Which, by the way, I think would make him very uncomfortable.
I think so too. Like, I mean, from what I can tell from the guy, I think that would probably make him a little bit uncomfortable. But again, I didn't know him, so it's hard to make that.
If this is a guy that used to tweet like multiple times, it's all about Jesus.
Right. Yes. Yes. So you have these just two very opposite reactions, and you have the people on the one side who were proponents of him, who have made the claims that he is a modern day Christian martyr. You have the people on the other side who's just like, yeah, he's a guy that got shot, and rightly so.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to address that first.
Okay.
What do you say to those people who seem to celebrate the fact that this 31, 32-year-old guy was killed publicly?
This is going to sound harsh, but shame on you. I mean, really. Yeah. This was a husband and a father that you disagreed with politically, perhaps theologically, and to celebrate his murder. And by the way, we're not talking about, we're not talking about some war criminal here. We're not who is killed by authorities in combat or by the military in combat, which celebrating is one thing, but to cheer or be glad about the murder of a fellow human being with whom you disagreed, it's hard to say anything gentle about that.
Yeah, right. I don't think that I don't think it takes a very moral person to look at that kind of behavior and say, that's immoral.
Yeah, that's kind of a low bar.
It is. It
really
is a super low bar.
Yeah.
To celebrate the death of anybody. I mean, I would even say, I'm probably a little bit more radical on this than some are. But I have a hard time celebrating the death of enemy combatants,
right.
Which I've never been in a war zone. And so it's probably easy for me to say that. But when you see somebody lose their life, it doesn't matter if it's a terrorist trying to kill you or if it's a political opponent or whatever the case may be. It's just man, that is a person who was made in the image of God. And regardless of their choices, there is value in being made in the image of God. And we
like Osama bin Laden, they did the raid on his compound.
Yes.
And they took him out. I was glad that he was finally ended. I would have preferred they maybe had taken him alive or whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't, even in that, which is totally different than what we're talking about.
Right.
I mean, that guy was responsible for thousands and thousands of innocent deaths. I don't remember the kind of celebration that I'm seeing about the death of this figure who's
never killed anybody, who's never been responsible for a terrorist attack, who's never, it's just a very odd and just malicious and evil response to an evil deed. So, I mean, there's that. I think that you've made it clear, and I think that if you are a believer, this should be clear. If you're celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, there's something deeply wrong in your heart.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about on the flip side of it.
Okay.
So let's just go to the polar opposite, and let's talk about those folks who have kind of crowned Charlie Kirk now posthumously as this Christian martyr.
Well, and I've heard him described as the Billy Graham of our age, or the greatest modern evangelist, and so forth.
Yeah. So what do you say? What do you say to those folks?
Well, what I would say is I don't want to take away from the good Charlie Kirk did.
Right.
And, again, I hate that I feel like I have to say this, but I didn't agree with everything Charlie Kirk said.
Right.
In fact, some of his theology I didn't agree with, and I have literally seen him on video claiming translation of the Greek New Testament that was just 100% in error.
Right.
Again, everybody's wrong on stuff. So when I say that, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but I want to be clear that, I agree. I like the guy. I loved that he went to college campuses and gave the microphone to people he disagreed with.
Yeah.
And put up a thing that said, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And did he get a little snarky at times? Yeah. Do I? Yeah. Do you? Probably. But he was having conversations, and we all talk about the indoctrination going on college campuses and how college campuses now have these safe zones and all that kind of stuff, where when I was in college in the 80s, safe zone? College is where you went to have your ideas challenged and sharpened and honed and that kind of thing, which is what college It's what a university setting ought to be. And so what he did is he pushed back on this, like, no, instead of just coddling our college students and telling them what to think, let's cause them to think for their own, and let's show them positions that are completely contradictory from what they normally are getting in much of their media and their classrooms.
Right.
I commend that. And while he was doing it, he frequently took time to share the gospel.
Right.
It's hard not to commend that.
Well, I mean, I think that it is commendable, right?
It is.
I mean, like the guy had a platform that this is going to be my opinion here. So like, there's going to be people who probably are upset with what I'm about to say, but the guy had a platform that was primarily established because of politics.
Yes.
And he utilized that platform at times, not all the time, but at times, to present the gospel in a clear and efficient way to people who were, asking questions and things like that. And I appreciate that.
Just like I think everybody ought to do in whatever business they're in, that use it as a platform for the gospel,
right.
which I think he was a really good example of how to do that.
Yes, I do too. I agree wholeheartedly.
But like, if you own whatever kind of business, and in interacting with your clients or your customers or whatever, you seize on every opportunity you can to share the gospel. I don't think that means it's a Christian business.
Right.
It's a business that's owned by Christians. And let me give you an example, and some people aren't going to like this either, but everybody talked about, well, no, this wasn't about politics. It was a Christian ministry. And I think I can prove to you that it's not. They have some turning point events coming up where one of the speakers is a Hindu and one of the speakers is a Mormon.
Yeah.
Well, a Christian ministry doesn't do that, right? Which just tells you that these are people that agreed with him politically,
right,
and morally, and that was the purpose of his business. And by the way, I got no problem with that.
Yeah,
you got a business, and you're gonna, in your business, you're gonna interact with people of other faiths or whatever. Great.
Yeah.
They're not silencing you. You're still sharing the gospel. So I think that's all really good. But Glenn Beck is a very outspoken Mormon who is speaking at, one of the upcoming events, and a Christian ministry would not have Glenn Beck as a speaker.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't think that, based on what I can tell, again, I never met the man. I don't think that anything that you just said right there that Charlie Kirk would even disagree with. Right. His group, they did want to bring the gospel into the political arena, into the political dialogue. But at the end of the day, it was a political group that was not just extended to Christians only. You did not have to sign some statement of faith in order that I'm aware of to start a Turning Point chapter.
That's right.
Or something along those lines.
And so piggyback on that, we've seen apparently that thousands and thousands of applications have come in from schools wanting to establish Turning Point chapters. And we're hearing of thousands of students showing up to these Turning Point events. And that's being used as evidence of a Christian revival.
Okay, so this is where I wanted to go with this next. Okay, so, I guess I'm trying to summarize here what has been said so far. The assassination, because that's what it was.
That's what it was.
The assassination of Charlie Kirk is an evil. And it makes me sad because we lost a brother in Christ. It makes me sad because there's a family without a father and a husband now. It makes me sad on so many levels.
Yes.
On so many levels. In turn, along with that sadness that I experience, I don't think that the response of giving Charlie Kirk this kind of sainthood status or what, and that's my own terminology. I don't know how else to say it. What would be a good way of describing it?
I don't know, because we don't have saints.
We don't, right. That's right.
But an elevated, exalted,
status. It's like, hey, if the elevated, exalted status puts you in a place where you can't acknowledge his wrong either.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think he ever actually went and I never saw publicly him doing something wrong. It's more of like his ideology. Like if we can't call some of his ideology bad, like if we want to say that everything that he did was perfect, I'm sorry, then
which, by the way, maybe later we can talk about that too. Just this whole tribal thing.
Yes.
That if somebody's in your camp, you're not allowed to criticize them.
That's right. That's right. And that's not a good policy.
Right.
Like, let's acknowledge the guy for the good that he did.
Absolutely.
And I think there was a lot of good that he did. I think that you've displayed that in so far on our podcast. Now let's talk about this revival movement, because I am hearing a lot of political commentators, not necessarily theologians, but political commentators they're very popular. I don't want to go into all their names, because I think that they're good people too. I think that they're brothers and sisters in Christ, just like Charlie was. But they're talking about this massive revival that the country is experiencing.
Right.
Let's comment on that for a little bit.
Well, by the way, if God uses this to spark a revival,
oh, praise God,
I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, right.
I hope it doesn't miss me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm actually looking up something here that I'm going to share if I can find it. But Christian revival is here I found it. So I actually posted this recently. Jonathan Edwards was in the 1700s. He was a pastor in New England, and he was one of the really spearheads and leaders of the First Great Awakening in America. And he's got a book. There's a book called Jonathan Edwards on Revival. Okay, and it's about him. But here's his 5 marks of genuine revival. Number 1, a revival of interest in theology and doctrine.
Okay.
Number 2, a revival of commitment to the Bible. Number 3, central exaltation of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Number 4, a discernible spirit of repentance. And number 5, a genuine love for God and neighbor. Now, it's too early to tell if we're going to have, if what we're having is that.
Yeah.
But if we are, websites that do good Christian theology are going to see a spike. Christian theological books are going to see a spike. More people are going to be attending Bible studies. Jesus Christ will be the primary focus and message, not just the moral positions of Christians.
Right. Okay, so, explain. Yeah, okay, you got to explain that. Yeah.
So he was pro-marriage.
Yes.
Anti-trans.
Yeah.
Pro-life. You can be all of those things and be an atheist. You can be all of those things and be just about any kind of...
We know atheists who are those things.
We do know atheists who are those things. So Jesus is central. It's not about promoting the Judeo-Christian value, which is the phrase we hear. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. We as Christians need to promote those things. But those are downstream of the gospel.
Yeah.
In other words, conversion comes before changing hearts and minds.
Yeah.
There will also be, it talks about a discernible spirit of repentance. You will see people turning from their sin. You will see people leaving their sinful lifestyles. You will see people coming out of homosexuality. You will see cohabiting couples fix that problem. You're going to see real thing. And then this genuine love for God and neighbor. So if real revival is happening, the rhetoric and the vitriol will be discernibly absent from those in revival. No more calling evil names of those on the other side.
Right.
But it's going to be it's going to be what Jesus taught, that you love your enemies and you pray for those who persecute you.
Yeah.
And so again, this idea of we've got to fight kind of thing. That is not a Jesus ethos. Fighting for our cultural values.
Yeah.
Fighting for the soul of America. No, our battle is done in prayer.
Yeah.
And
our battle is done in love.
And our interaction is done in love and kindness.
Yeah.
And just to give you an example, I have seen, I mentioned this in my sermon Sunday. I was preaching on the Good Samaritan. I have literally seen Christian pastors, and I have been told the day of turning the other cheek is past. The day of loving your neighbor is past. The day of forgiving your enemies is past. That was in Jesus' day. This is a different day and era. And I'm telling you, they're using the same hermeneutics the pro-LGBTQ people are using. Well, that was first century. It's a different era now. And what a slippery slope. Well, you can apply that to anything in the Bible.
It's not just a slippery slope, it's evil.
It is evil. There's even, I've seen this tweet go around, Make America Hate Again, which was started by a Christian pastor. Make America hate again. Okay, that is not a mark of Christian revival.
No.
That may be a mark of a political, I don't even want to use the term revival, but enthusiasm, but it is decidedly un-Christian. And so, again, man, if we're going to see a lot of people come to faith, if we're going to see Christians get way more committed to Jesus than they have been, if we're going to see a deepening of prayer and Bible study and theology and loving neighbor and worship of Jesus, God, let it be so.
Yeah.
And if Charlie Kirk's assassination can spark that, then man, we have seen God take something evil and work something really good. We have seen Satan dealt a blow.
Yeah.
And I pray that's what happens. Forgive me for being a little cautious in my optimism.
Well, no, but you shouldn't. Okay, but here's the deal: you should not have to ask for forgiveness on that, because this is the reality of any movement of God. We don't know what ground the seed is falling on,
Right.
and so like I feel very comfortable. Maybe you do too. We actually haven't talked about this, but I feel very comfortable saying, hey, the seeds of the gospel are falling.
Yeah.
Like we can see that. And by the way, I'm talking about the parable of the sower, right?
Yeah.
That you have like
at Charlie Kirk's memorial, the gospel was shared very clearly.
Yes.
By like Frank Turek especially.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Well, you had some very clear gospel presentation. You had a lot of worship that was going on. So the seeds of the gospel are clearly falling.
Yes.
But for us to be able to claim revival, we have to allow the time needed to determine, hey, the seed is falling on fertile ground.
Let me give you another parallel. I saw this. You're probably too young, but after 9/11,
Okay.
churches started filling.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
And what we heard is revival is breaking out.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I was pastoring in Maryland at the time. If you draw a line from Washington, D.C., due east, we were right across Chesapeake Bay from where Washington, D.C. is. A 90-minute drive, but I mean, as a crow flies, very close.
Yeah.
I don't know how they found us, but NBC Nightly News called me, a producer at NBC Nightly News. It was coming up on the 6-month anniversary, or semi-versary, whatever you call it, 6 months after 9/11.
Yeah.
And we want to know, actually, I got to take it back. It may have been the 1-year anniversary, but we want to know the effect of spirituality that 9/11 had that's lasting on the church. But they came and we were on NBC Nightly News and I was interviewed and some people at our church were interviewed. And what they wanted to know is what effect has this had long term? And the answer was none. Now, I'm not saying some individuals didn't have some lasting effect.
Right, but as a culture.
But what we saw is like the Sunday after 9/11, buddy, it was standing room only in both of our worship services.
Yeah.
And there was weeping and there was worship. 6 months later, attendance was back to normal. And that was nationwide. So, but people were talking, look at this revival. The revival fires are just sweeping across America. No, there was an emotional thing that happened that caused people. I mean, they looked to churches. They're looking to churches for answers. I'm sure some people came to know Jesus through that. But it was not, revival is something that has lasting effects.
Well, and I think that I kind of reiterate, I feel like for anyone to claim, hey, that was a revival, you have to be looking at hindsight.
Yeah.
2020. I mean,
that's right.
Like you and I, and there's some people that may really be offended by this, but you and I have a similar, well, I'll say, maybe not. I'm not the biggest, I think that Charles Finney, and if you don't know who Charles Finney was, when was he alive? 1800s, 1700s?
Yeah.
Anyways, he was a revivalist preacher. He was this kind of traveling revivalist preacher. Mm-hmm. And everywhere he went, there were tons and tons of decisions. Yeah. But they have gone back and looked at his circuit, and they found that in the aftermath of him leaving, that the morals of the communities that he was in got worse after his revivalist preaching than they were prior to. And some people have hypothesized that because his preaching was so much about just like making a one-time decision so that way you don't go to hell, so that way you can go to heaven, that people were just like, okay, well, I got my fire insurance. I can now go do whatever I want to. There wasn't repentance. There wasn't.
So I actually talked about Finney when I was talking about church history a while back, and I'd have to go, we don't prep for these, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
I would have to go back and find it. But Finney is actually on record talking about how you don't need the Holy Spirit to get people converted. What you need is the right environment and the kind of, I don't remember the term he used, but basically psychological manipulation. And he's the one that coined the term the anxious bench,
Right.
getting people to come. And his whole thing was, if you're doing it right, people will come and pray a prayer of salvation.
Yeah.
And so if the Spirit's not involved, it's not going to be a long-lasting
Right.
revival.
Right.
It was, and from that is where came the term revivalism and conversionism.
Conversionism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant, like with you, to say, hey, there's this massive revival going on. But what I am very confident saying is that the seeds of the gospel are undoubtedly being sown. We need to give it the time. And we as church leaders need to cultivate the ground as best as we can. But we need to give it the time to say, okay, this was fertile ground or it was.
But like Jesus, when the disciples said, hey, man, we saw a guy casting out demons in your name. We tried to stop him. And he's like,
Yeah, don't stop it. Yeah.
And then Paul's in prison at one time, and they said, and he says, well, I've heard, there are these people out there and they're preaching the gospel, but you say it's with the wrong motives. I don't care. He says, as long as the gospel is being preached, I rejoice.
Right. So here would be another thing that I'm hearing from people. Why? So in this podcast so far, we're probably, I don't know, we might be 30 minutes in. I'm not entirely sure. We've spoken more about the Christian right than we have about the far left that was responsible for the killing of Charlie Kirk,
right,
or something like that, right? Why are we spending more time talking about the Christian right than we are about?
Because there are people.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's our camp.
Yeah, it's our camp, and we're the ones that we're most concerned with, right?
Yeah.
I would hope that people in the left would be speaking to their people.
Yes,
right?
yes, that's very, that the people on the, and again, I don't even know how to properly define these terms. I just hear them thrown out in culture. Like the people on the far left, like let them address the fact that a man was killed and people celebrated. And I think people have been.
In fact, I don't want to take the time to search for it, but I'll tell you who had one of the best statements of all after the assassination. It was Bernie Sanders. I mean, it was so good that even the hard right conservatives were commending him on it.
Well, and like, so that's his camp. So we have to speak to our camp. When our camp starts to do things in the name of Christ that don't resemble Christ, we have to be able to speak to that. Yeah. And obviously, so we don't spend a lot of time talking about politics. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the far right or the Christian right or whatever, but it's like, hey, we have got to be, and this is one of the things that like has bothered the dog out of me. And you can comment. I want to hear you comment on this. But the thing that I keep hearing from these social media influencers that are on the Christian right, hey, you got to have, now's the time to have courage. Now's the time. And I'm just like, hold on. What do you think courage looks like here?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because Mike Miller, you stand up and preach the gospel more than probably anybody I know. And I'm not talking about behind the pulpit. I'm saying like I see you, I have walked with you. You are an evangelist at heart. Is that fair to say?
I do like sharing the gospel.
You share the gospel.
I don't know how good at it I am, but I like doing it.
I think that you're very good at it. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know of anybody in my life that shares the gospel with people more than you do. That's courage.
Al Lambert.
Al Lambert shares the gospel with a lot of people. He's sitting right here too. But I mean, like that, that's courage, right? You stand on strong morals. That's courage. You don't back away from the hard topics. That's courage. But I'm sorry, for you to stand up in your pulpit and in a Baptist church, in a Southern Baptist church, in the Bible Belt, and talk about Charlie Kirk, that's not courage. I mean, that's just what people are expecting. And so, like, you see all these Christian influencers who are just like, if your pastor doesn't have a tribute to Charlie Kirk, then he's a coward or whatever. Yeah. And I'm sorry that you have to put up with stuff like that.
I'm sorry I have to put up with stuff like that.
Well,
too.
But I want to, like,
can I tell you that in our church, thankfully, I've only gotten that from one person. 500 people on a Sunday morning. We had over 500 people that Sunday. One person was upset with it. And by the way, I did talk about it. We didn't have a tribute. We had a time of prayer.
Yeah.
Based on the assassination and the reaction for revival in our country. And so, but yes,
And the sermon was about
By
revival.
the way, this is not unique to this. I'm on social media a little bit more than you. I'm not on there a lot. I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. I don't even think you're on there, are you?
No, I don't have a Twitter.
But that's where you really see a lot of this stuff. And it's whatever the outrage of the day is. If your pastor doesn't talk about fill in the blank on Sunday, you need to find another church. Let me tell you what you need to put in that blank. Write the word Jesus. If your pastor doesn't talk about Jesus on Sunday, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Not the current outrage. By the way, I address current events.
Yeah, you do.
And I
But
think
through the lens of Jesus.
yes, and I think we need to. But if your pastor on a specific Sunday named by the social media influencers didn't say exactly what they said he's supposed to say, so what? Yeah. Who are these people? They don't know your pastor. They don't know you. And the thing is, can I just tell you, I'm not bothered as much for me because our church just isn't like that.
Yeah, we're not worried.
But I am bothered. Here's what I'm bothered by. You got some pastor out there who is in a small church making hardly any money, working his tail off to serve the Lord and the Lord's people, preaching his heart out every Sunday. And somebody's going to be influenced by some social media influencer that doesn't even know them.
Yeah.
And they're going to take it out on their faithful pastor because he didn't address a cultural issue that may be a very significant. In fact, I would tell you, here, let me put it this way. Back in 9/11, if your pastor didn't say anything the Sunday after 9/11, I would have a conversation with him and say, why didn't you tell us how to think through this?
But you wouldn't tell that person to leave
your
their church. Yeah,
No,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be like saying leave your wife. I mean, I take commitment to a church very seriously. This is family.
Yeah.
Walk out on your get up on Christmas and walk. But there are people out there, if your family talks about this at Thanksgiving, you just need to leave. No, you don't.
Yeah.
It's your family. And you don't walk away from your family.
Right.
Yeah, I do get a little worked up about this. So.
Well, but I mean, like it's well, I don't think it's anything to apologize for because you have people that don't know you.
Right.
They don't know your people, but they are influencing the people that are listening on Sunday morning. They're influencing the people that are showing up for church, and they're making these bold claims that it's like, hey, walk out on your family, walk out on your people because your pastor didn't say something in the way that I think he should say it. I just got I think that is wrong.
Had we been able to go to Charlie Kirk on the first Sunday after he was assassinated and say, are you really bothered that people didn't pay tribute to you on Sunday? He would say, what?
Yeah. I think.
Did they talk about Jesus?
Let me just say this. I think highly enough of Charlie Kirk to agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
Like to me, to not agree with what you just said would for me be me saying, no, Charlie Kirk was a very immature Christian. Yeah. And I don't think that he was. I think that Charlie Kirk was a mature Christian. I think he was a mature man.
In fact, I'll tell you, and I've been, maybe this is petty. I don't think he would have wanted to have his memorial service at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Because, he had this list of things he used to say. He used to put this out all the time. Get a job, get married, have lots of babies, go to church.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there were literally pastors in the Phoenix area pleading with Turning Point, saying, please don't empty out our church on Sunday morning. And I mean, that's a nitpicky thing. But I think what's happening here is that people are wanting way more emphasis on him than he would ever want. I think I can say that confidently.
He seemed to be a man that glorified God with his life enough to the point that I don't think that that's. But again, I don't know him, and so there might be somebody out there that disagrees with that. But I'm just saying, like the best that I can tell from what I have listened to, what I have seen, he seems to be a man who really did try to live.
Now, can I say something? I mean, it sounds like we're kind of just talking about the negative, and I don't want to do that. In fact, one of the things I want to say is, for his widow to stand up in that stadium and say she forgives the man that killed her husband, the father of her children, that's somebody who understands the gospel.
That's right. That was powerful.
Man.
That was powerful. And I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I don't think I could do that. I like if I was in her shoes, somebody killed my wife.
I might be able to stand up and go, pray for me. I'm working on forgiving this person.
I might be able to say that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but for her to get up there and with, the sincerity.
The thing is, you could because the Holy Spirit's in you.
That's true. I've never been in that situation, so I don't want to but I know my flesh too. I know the struggle that I would have. Yeah. And I just thought that was a very powerful moment.
It really was. And I am so thankful that, literally millions of people heard the gospel, because I know millions of people watched it. And,
I did.
And for that, I am very thankful. And I do think that Charlie would have been really, really pleased with that.
Yeah.
Hey, man. In fact, I would say more people heard the gospel through his death than they did through his life.
You know what? And that's not a knock on him.
No.
I think that's a true statement. I think that's a very true, and that's what I'm saying. The seeds of the gospel are falling right now.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I love that. I think that is a beautiful thing. I hate that, Charlie, I hate that, you had to have such a tragedy.
Yeah, me too.
For something along those lines. Okay. Well, I tell you what, that's probably a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Do you have any other comments that you just want to throw out or anything?
I don't think so. The only thing I would say is, if you're talking about this stuff, have civil discourse.
Yeah.
I just started a thing on apologetics on Wednesday nights, and one of the things that I did is, we get the word apologetics from 1 Peter 3:15, and or is it 2 Peter 3:15? I always get a mind blank on that. Anyway, where Peter says that we should always be ready to give a defense, and the word defense is the word apologia in Greek. And he says, but to give a defense to anyone who asks you for the hope that is within you, but do this with gentleness and respect. Peter said that. Peter also said, fear God, honor the emperor. Who was the emperor when Peter said that?
Nero.
It was Nero. Who put Peter to death?
Nero. That's powerful.
That's powerful. That's the gospel. That's what the gospel does to you. The gospel doesn't turn you into an angry person who hates people. The gospel takes that stuff away and fills your heart with love and kindness and gentleness. So have these discussions. And by the way, if you got an issue with your pastor, go sit down and talk to your pastor.
Yeah.
Without threatening to leave the church and without calling him names.
Yeah.
Go have a conversation, and you might just find. In fact, I've got a friend who goes to a different church, and he was really upset about a lot of this stuff. And I said, well, let's talk about this. We talked about it, and you know what? We found out that 99% of the stuff, we were right on the same page. We were just talking about it differently. And you might just find that out.
Yeah. I think that's a good word. I think it's a great word to close. So with all that, folks, we appreciate our international audience that we shouted out at the beginning of the episode, but we also appreciate those folks here in the States as well, too. And so, again, our goal with this particular episode, we do think that it was a good time to address some current events.
Yeah.
Our goal is not to infuriate or whatever, but we understand that there's probably going to be some.
But if you're mad about anything we said, just stop and ask yourself why.
Yeah.
And stop and ask yourself, do you get this upset when you hear a Mormon say that God was a man just like us?
Yeah.
Or when you hear a Jehovah's Witness say Jesus was not God?
Yeah.
Are you more offended by what somebody says about Charlie Kirk than what you are by somebody who says, I don't know, I just lost my words there. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What they say about Jesus.
Yeah, I guess, here this episode, I think, I've shown our appreciation for Charlie Kirk. It's the how people have responded, I think, is where we're
that's exactly
now,
right.
for sure. So anyways, what the world was I just about to say? Blah, blah.
Yeah, I love doing that in the pulpit. That's my favorite.
Sorry for that. Maybe Al will cut that out or leave. Okay, he's going to leave it in.
He's going to amplify it. He's going to put that on repeat.
All right. Well, guys, thank y'all for tuning in, and we will see you on the next time. Mic'd up. See you.
Bye.